No one thought he could do it. The millionaire's daughter, untouchable, feared by everyone around her, had broken hearts, shattered egos, and silenced even the boldest. But then, in a world stacked against him, a janitor walked into her life. He wasn't supposed to matter, wasn't supposed to change anything. But what happened next shocked everyone. It was a moment no one saw coming. A moment that would defy expectations and reveal the harsh truths hidden beneath polite smiles and fancy parties. Could one man truly break through walls built by wealth, prejudice, and power? The answer will leave you speechless. It was just another Monday morning, and Marcus, the janitor, followed his usual routine. The hum of fluorescent lights, the echo of his mop across the polished floors, the quiet nods from a few familiar faces. This was his world, a life defined by repetition, by being seen but rarely noticed. He didn't complain. He had bills to pay, family to support, and dignity to maintain. Meanwhile, at the top floor of the same building, the millionaire's daughter, Isabella, prepared for her day with a precision that left little room for mistakes, or for anyone who might challenge her. Everyone knew her temper, her exacting standards, and the unspoken rule: nobody crossed her without consequence. Staff whispered about her, avoided her gaze, and learned the hard way that wealth gave her power few could withstand. Marcus had seen her before, from a distance, always with that air of untouchable confidence. He never expected their worlds to collide, but today, something in the air felt different. Tension lingered, like a storm cloud, subtle but undeniable. Little did Marcus know, a single encounter would shatter the invisible barriers between them, testing courage, privilege, and justice in ways he had never imagined. Marcus had worked in that building for years, quietly sweeping corridors and emptying trash bins, always careful to stay invisible. But today, something was different. Isabella's entourage was unusually tense, whispers ricocheting off the marble walls as she stormed past him, eyes flashing with irritation. He kept his distance, instinctively lowering his gaze, yet fate seemed determined to collide their worlds. It started with a spilled coffee, a careless step, a dropped cup, and the rich daughter's polished heels barely missed the mess, but she turned on him instantly, her voice cutting through the hallway like glass. "Watch where you're going, man," she snapped. Marcus felt the familiar sting of humiliation, not just for himself, but for every invisible hand that had ever cleaned up after others without thanks. Around them, the staff exchanged uneasy glances, silent witnesses to the daily power imbalance they'd long accepted. But Marcus didn't walk away. Something inside him hardened. This wasn't just about coffee. It was about every time someone like him was dismissed, ignored, or insulted because of who he was, the color of his skin, the job he held. And Isabella, for all her wealth and status, embodied that inequality perfectly. The tension escalated during a high-profile event that evening. He saw her at the center of the room, commanding attention effortlessly, laughing at jokes he would never be allowed to tell. Guests whispered, servers scurried, and Marcus moved quietly in the background, unnoticed. Until it happened. A wealthy guest mocked one of his colleagues, a black waiter, with a cruel remark about competence. Marcus froze for a moment, feeling the weight of injustice pressing down like a physical force. Everyone else laughed nervously or turned away, but not him. He stepped forward, not angrily, not recklessly, but with a calm that startled everyone. The room seemed to hold its breath. He confronted the wealthy guest, pointing out the insult, naming the prejudice. Gasps rippled across the crowd. Isabella's eyes widened, not in amusement, but in disbelief. How dare a janitor speak up? How dare someone so ordinary challenge the order she thought unbreakable? The confrontation grew, each word cutting deeper, exposing the cracks in the polished veneer of wealth and status. Marcus felt both fear and exhilaration. He knew that in this world, one misstep could ruin him, yet the injustice was undeniable, and he could not stay silent. Every moment stretched taut, the crowd's murmurs and shifting eyes amplifying the suspense. And then, just as it seemed Isabella might assert control, Marcus did something no one expected. The room fell silent as Marcus stepped closer, every eye now on him. Isabella's laughter had faded, replaced by a flicker of irritation, and then disbelief. He raised his voice, calm but firm, calling out the hypocrisy, the cruelty, and the walls built by wealth and prejudice. Every word cut through the air, sharp and undeniable. For a moment, time seemed suspended. The wealthy guests shifted uncomfortably, their polite smiles faltering. Whispers turned into murmurs. And then a ripple of tension spread through the room. Marcus could feel the weight of centuries pressing down, the expectations, the dismissals, the countless unseen injustices, but he refused to shrink. He was just one man, yet in that moment, he carried the voices of so many who had been silenced. Isabella's eyes narrowed. Power radiated from her, a force he had never challenged before. She stepped forward, poised to humiliate him publicly, to remind everyone of the order that must not be broken. But Marcus held his ground, his gaze steady, his heart hammering. The crowd held its breath. Could one janitor truly defy her? Could one voice pierce the armor of wealth, entitlement, and centuries of unchallenged authority? Then it happened. Marcus did the unthinkable. A single act, small in appearance, monumental in impact, sent shockwaves across the room. Gasps echoed, footsteps froze, and Isabella stumbled back, caught off guard by a force she had never anticipated. For the first time, the untouchable had been confronted. The room teetered on the edge of chaos, the boundaries between privilege and justice suddenly blurred, and in that charged silence, Marcus realized something terrifying and exhilarating at once. He had changed more than just this moment. He had challenged a system, exposed a truth, and left everyone questioning what they thought they knew about power, race, and courage. By the end of the evening, the atmosphere had shifted. The guests whispered nervously, their laughter replaced by a quiet recognition of something they had long ignored. Isabella, for the first time, was unsettled, not by wealth, not by status, but by the undeniable courage of someone she had dismissed for a lifetime. Marcus returned to his routine the next day, mop in hand, hallway lights humming overhead, but he was no longer invisible. He had left a mark, not just on the room, but on the people who witnessed it, and perhaps on the world beyond those polished walls. The impact was profound. Marcus carried a quiet pride, but also the weight of reality, that standing up against injustice often comes with fear, risk, and uncertainty. Yet the act itself, simple in its appearance, monumental in meaning, proved that courage can pierce even the most fortified barriers of privilege and prejudice. His story was not just his own. It reflected the countless unseen battles faced by those marginalized, ignored, or underestimated. The everyday struggles where dignity and justice hang in fragile balance. This moment, one janitor challenging centuries of expectation, served as a reminder that true change often begins with the bravery of a single individual. It asked a question that echoes far beyond the confines of that building. How many voices remain unheard simply because the world refuses to listen? How many walls built by wealth, race, and status still need to be broken down? Marcus's courage leaves us with a challenge, to notice the invisible, to speak out against injustice, and to act when the world expects silence. Because if one ordinary person can shift the course of an evening, imagine what could happen if millions refuse to accept the injustice that surrounds them. Will you be one of them?